Hello and welcome to the In Spite of Everything podcast. I'm Yael Dooley, and today's exciting because not only do I have two guests today, these two guests are people that maybe all of us know at this point. These two gentlemen founded Scirra Limited in May 2011 and have been finessing Construct since 2007. Joining us today is Tom and Ashley Gullen. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hello.
Hi there.
Really exciting to have you on. For obvious reasons, I think. I mean, I made this whole podcast because I love the software so much, and to be talking to you guys is pretty exciting. And I know that you have busy schedules, obviously, so I appreciate you taking the time.
No worries, and thanks for having us. We don't do many interviews. This is new for us and exciting, and we're glad to be here, so thank you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm happy to join. You made it sound a bit like we're celebrities with that intro. I don't think we're that well known, but we're happy to be here.
I'm guessing you guys grew up playing video games.
Yes. So let me think. The first computer game, I think Ash as well, we both played RuneScape, the original RuneScape. And so I used to stay behind school with my friends and play the original RuneScape if the IT guy would let me with all my friends. And that's sort of what I grew up playing as well. And I believe, Ash, you played a lot of RuneScape as well when you were younger.
Yeah, you joined it before I did, didn't you? You were playing when there were like 50 people on RuneScape, which was pretty early days.
Yeah, it was very early, yeah.
It was a pretty big game these days in years past.
I know the name, but what genre is that?
That's like a MMORPG. It's like one of the first ones that came out, and I think that game actually inspired me to learn to code. Actually, I think that was one of the first things where I was like, "This is so awesome! I need to learn how to do stuff like this." And that got me into programming. So, Jagex, if you're listening, thank you.
How young were you? Would you say?
Gosh, that was secondary school, so I think must have been 11 or 12, sort of that sort of age. It's when it first came out. Yeah, so a long time ago.
So you guys have been doing this since you were really young.
Yeah, we're both, I think it's fair to say we're both self-taught, and from that sort of age I started making my first websites, and I think Ash, you started programming around that time as well?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think I started picking up when I was about 15. Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned, but we are brothers, so
yeah.
We grew up together, and I've got fond memories of playing Mega Drive and N64.
No, N64 is the best console ever. Just don't.
It's objectively the best console ever.
Yeah.
Cartridges, not CDs. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big war back in the day.
No, that's crazy. 15. I couldn't imagine doing anything remotely that advanced at that age. That's pretty cool. Although you said you made websites, what were you doing? What kind of website were you making at 15?
Yeah, but the first one I made, I think, was when I was playing RuneScape. It was a sort of RuneScape based website. I can't remember the details. Then I made a sort of online arcade website, which basically just linked to games you could play online. So that's my first website. It's called gamezoner.com. I think it's on the Internet Archive somewhere.
Oh, wow. And .com was taken, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then there was a web forum called WebWhiz Forums, and I basically honed a lot of my programming, sort of adding mods to that forum and going from there, basically.
Didn't you do a website for a Toyota F1 as well, Tom?
Yeah, so when I was 15, I was adding mods to this forum software, and I had my own personal website, and I got a phone call one day I got an email one day saying, "Can you make these changes to your add-on?" And I said, I was a bit cheeky at the time. I said, "I don't have the unpaid time," and I was only 15. And they're like, "Totally understand. What are your rates?" So I gave them a pretty high rate, and it turned out to be the Toyota F1 team website. And so I ended up working on that for a little bit, and they're quite surprised when they phoned me and realised how young I was. That was one of the highlights of my web development, I guess.
That's a great story, actually. Wow. So when was it you decided you needed to form a company together and go all in on Construct?
Well, I think the company came together for Construct 2, really. I'd been working on Construct Classic before that as an open source project, which I don't think you were involved in, were you, Tom?
No, I wasn't. No.
Yeah, that was when I was at university. So it was very much a side project, a volunteer thing. I just work on it here and there when I had spare time. And as I was coming up to graduate from university, I was thinking about what am I going to do with my life? I need a job. I need to make money. Around that time, I was reading a lot of articles from Y Combinator, which is a big US startup accelerator. At the time, it was run by a guy called Paul Graham, who wrote a lot of really insightful, very, very good essays on startups and like how they work and what you should do if you're starting a startup and so on. I'd still recommend anyone who wants to start a company now to go and have a good read through that, especially anything tech-based. And I thought, you know what, I'm graduating. I didn't feel like I had a lot to lose at the time. It's a good time in your life to try and start a company.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't work out, you'll just be another unemployed poor graduate like everyone else, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, I may as well give it a go. I'm going to start a company. So we've been using the Scirra name for a while as associated with Construct Classic. So around 2011, we registered it as a proper company. It's a limited company in the UK, and gave it a go. We started building Construct 2 from scratch because to sell software, it's difficult to sell open source software or monetize it. Construct Classic was all open source. And Construct Classic, the code was not exactly brilliant. We'd learned a lot from working on the open source project. So we took a fresh start, started rebuilding Construct 2 from scratch, started selling it in August that year for early adopter licenses. And here we are today, still doing it. I was kind of surprised how well it went. And things just kind of took off from there.
Wow. So was it pretty clear from the beginning what direction you wanted to take Construct and always sort of keep going towards this goal, or did it sort of evolve over time?
I think we had quite a clear idea of what we wanted to do. We've always had more ideas than time to be able to do it all, and that's still true today. It would be great if we had... I could easily find things for another 20 developers to do, probably, but we're still a small company. The big change with Construct 2 was we took this, at the time, this huge bet, this real gamble on saying we think HTML5 is the future. That was when we shifted away from Construct Classic, which had the whole thing was written in C++ and used DirectX and was Windows only. And I was keenly aware that if it's only one or two of us, the amount of time you can spend writing code is quite limited, and there's just not time to write all these ports for different platforms and maintaining all the code and fixes on all these on like Windows and Mac and Linux. So we sort of took this bet on HTML5. Which was quite controversial at the time. There's quite a fair few people around saying, what are you doing? Flash is obviously the way to go. And I sometimes wonder where those people have gone.
You don't wonder, you know where they've gone.
Where are they now? So, to be fair, it was a lot less clear at the time, but it's turned out it was a great bet. I think it was definitely a calculated risk. And what I thought was that with the backing of companies like Google, it would really take off, and that is exactly what's happened, really.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting how the whole idea of you making a game engine came about as well, because you were trying to build your own RTS game, and it was very ambitious.
Yeah.
You couldn't find any game development software that could sort of build what you wanted, what you imagined. So your solution for that was building your own engine, which sort of spawned where we are today. So I thought that's quite interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. This is kind of going back to Construct Classic. I mean, it's a classic thing. I still see beginners doing this now. You think, I want to make a game. What's my first game going to be? And then you think of just the most ridiculously huge and ambitious game imaginable.
Of course.
RuneScape.
Yeah. MMO. It has to be an MMO.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting, and it can give you that drive and ambition. But it's sensible to start a little bit smaller. If you're just starting out. But anyway, none of the tools in the market really seemed up to the job, and there seemed to be ways that I felt like I was running into limitations of the tools I was using, and I thought there's got to be better ways of doing this. It seemed to me there are obvious improvements just on the table that could be made, and no one was doing them. So I didn't start Construct Classic. I ended up being persuaded to join it by the people who started it, which is an interesting detail about the very beginning. And I thought, you know what I'll do, I'll make the tool to make my game in, and then I'll make my game in it. And that was the sort of thought process at the start. I never did finish that game. Completely derailed into software development ever since, which I'm quite happy about, actually. I think I love working on the tech side and making game development tools.
Yeah.
We have thought about making our own game at one point, but I think that's on ice for now. That was a few years back.
It's a fun idea. I'd love to do it. I just think I don't think we have time, and these kinds of things are risky. It's not really our core business or our main area of expertise, really. But I think it would be illuminating. It would be good for us to use our own tool to make a game. I'm sure we'd figure out some improvements along the way. But yeah, I think it'd be tough to do that ourselves.
I mean, I was going to ask that too. Yeah, if you guys were ever considering making games in-house, maybe at some point you can delegate people and then the two of you can make the greatest game of all time, RuneScape 5 or something like that.
One day, maybe.
So, I also want to, I started this podcast because I had used a few different softwares. I shouldn't even say a few. I feel like I've used 5 or 6 over the last 10 or 15 years, and all of them are just not quite what I wanted. Either they were so simple that they were really limited in their capabilities, or that they were a little bit overly complex, I guess, for my skill set. Like Unity, or people say Unity, but I have no interest in learning, how to use MonoDevelop or whatever that is, and doing things in 3D. But Construct is pretty incredible. It kind of hit me right away. Like, I don't have to have an education in web development or JavaScript or any script language, really. And I can literally make almost any 2D game I can think of with Construct. And that's pretty empowering. I think Construct gives creative people with little interest in programming the ability to put together a prototype, at the very least. You could be someone who writes romance novels, and you could put together a prototype probably in a few hours after you're doing the beginner template of Construct 3, and maybe have a game in 6 months with Fabio on the cover holding a Xbox controller.
Yeah, I think you get it. That's what Construct's all about, really. That's I think we sort of sit in between two ends of the scale. There's the big tools like Unity, which I think if you're a beginner, Unity, imagine looking at Unity, it must be a bit like looking at the cockpit of a 747. You just got like buttons everywhere, buttons on the ceiling, buttons on the floor, all these controls and things. And obviously it's incredibly powerful, and you can do everything you want to if you're an expert. But it's quite a steep learning curve if you're new. And then down the other end, you have tools which are often aimed at children or young people, and they look like you've got like colourful puzzle pieces which you kind of snap together. And they're great. They're great for teaching the basics of programming to children, and so they're good for what they're designed for. But there's nothing really in between, where if you're like an adult who's interested in dabbling in a bit of game creation, I think that's where Construct is that's its strength, really.
No, it's pretty powerful and pretty incredible. Can you actually tell us a little bit about your company day to day, and how many are employed at Scirra? And is it a normal 9 to 5 for most people? Is it Monday through Friday?
Yeah, so there is at the moment our team compromises of, it's me and Ash, obviously, and Ash has 2 full-time programmers working for him on the product itself. So there's a team of 3 working on that. We also have a part-time support user from France who you know as Kayatric on the forum. He's been with us pretty much from the very, very beginning. So he helps with support emails remotely. And then part-time we have Laura, who does social media for us and manages our emails and some other marketing efforts. And we have a part-time managing director as well, called Roger, who's been brilliant and has joined us when we basically hired Roger as a managing director when we started recruiting. Basically, he's one of our earliest employees to help with the growth, because there's only 2 of us, and we thought, now we need to start hiring help, and we're a little bit lost about it because it's quite a difficult process for any really small company to start hiring people. It changes everything.
Yeah.
So going back to your original question, on a normal day we'll have anywhere between 4 and 6 people, and our hours are, we're quite we have flexible hours. We tell people as long as they come in by 11, that's fine, and people come in sort of 11 till 7ish, those sort of hours, but it's basically a normal 9 to 5 job for most people throughout the week. I always thought as well, because a lot of small tech companies like having people work remotely, and I always thought it's a lot better to have people in the office next to each other. It just makes things work a lot better. So we're really keen on people working in the office when they can, and being around each other. And I just forgot to mention as well, we just hired a new bookkeeper who's in-house, who's part-time as well.
Oh,
so I think that's 7 or 8 people we have about now.
There's Paolo, who does some design work for us time to time as well.
Paolo's on contract doing design work for us as well, and he's done all our lovely characters and nice looking pictures on the website that are beyond my capabilities. So Paolo's responsible for all the nice things on the website.
Yeah, he does beautiful stuff. Yeah.
I didn't realize you guys were so hands-on still. I mean, it makes sense.
So something which has happened regularly to us ever since we started. People always seem to imagine we're a bigger company than we really are.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing. I think it's because we look like the real deal on our website. But we've been a very small company. It started with just the 2 of us, and now we're up to 6 or 7. And we're still all working flat out. It's not like me and Tom are kicking back on the beach and enjoying the sun. We're doing day-to-day work.
Yeah, although I'm sure it probably wouldn't hurt. I feel like you guys are working constantly then.
Oh yeah, I've learned the art of holidaying, because in the early days we were working 7 days a week, all day, every day, and I kind of burnt myself out repeatedly. It wasn't very good. I've learned, have weekends off and have holidays. It's actually more productive in the long run.
Yeah. Sort of touching base on what you were just talking about with people coming into the office, I think it's a great idea. I think there's something with this community that it can be easy to lock yourself in a dark room or a closet for hours on end, which isn't very healthy. And I think there's something nice about having a conversation with someone and being sort of normal and socializing with your peers in person. Yeah,
definitely, absolutely. Like when it's just me and Ash, we decided to rent some office space for the first time, and part of me was thinking, this is such a waste of money. Part of me was thinking, why are we spending our money on this, because we don't need this, like it's not essential. But actually is one of the best things we ever paid for from an early on date is having that work. It helps with the work-life balance. It's a place to work, and then you go home and then you can relax, and that's having a proper balance when you're running your own small startup or business is so important. But also you do need to put the work in. We did work really, really hard at the beginning, and that is necessary for a lot of small businesses as well, obviously. But it's important to keep checking yourself and make sure you are getting enough time off, because as Ash said, sorry, I've just lost my words. As Ash said, what did you just say, Ash?
Well,
you're more productive. You're more productive in the long run. I totally buy into that.
Yeah.
You are more productive in the long run if you give yourself some space and give yourself proper work-life balance.
Yeah. Having some separation, going to a different place, and being away from. I worked from home freelance for a few years, and that was just like, I feel like I wasn't very productive. It's so easy to be like, I'm going to go to the restroom, I'm going to watch this show real quick or take this call. When if I was at a place with people, I would have maybe a little more pressure to just sit and focus and not really think about anything else.
Yeah, definitely. I did some freelance work for a while at home, and I found a lot of people take to it really well. I found it really difficult because it's so hard to set yourself boundaries.
Yeah. So do the two of you do similar roles? Clearly you always work together, but are they sort of more skewed towards your personal strengths?
They're quite well defined and separate roles, actually. I think that so Ashley is, as much as possible, Ashley's time is spent on Construct 3, the product-based stuff, and as much as possible, my time is spent on the website, and I do a lot of support emails as well. And I think they're two well defined, fairly separate roles. that's why we work so well together, I think. And there's not that much overlap, only in sort of business development and decisions and things like that.
Yeah. No, that's great too. The fact that you're brothers is really great. I feel like there could, depending on the situation, it could be bad for family members to go in together in a business, and for the two of you it's working out great, it looks like. And that's
it is. I love working with my brother Ash, and it's good because I know it adds another dimension to the work relationship when family are involved, and a lot of other small businesses I've read do struggle with that sometimes, but we've managed it well, I think, and we haven't had any issues really over the last years, so it's been great.
I think we work well together. We're quite different in our approaches sometimes, but I think we sort of average out to a really reasonable middle ground, which is actually a strength. And also it's nice having a co-founder who you can really trust. I've heard about companies finding co-founders at networking events, so you sort of bump into someone and run a company with it, and then that's a lot of intensity to put onto a relationship with someone you've more or less just met. So it's nice having Tom there.
Yeah. Construct is, I should tell the viewers or listeners. So earlier I called you guys an hour early by accident because of daylight savings time, I believe. And I was going to say Construct is updated pretty frequently. And in the hour that I called you, you released another update.
It didn't go brilliantly smoothly, that one. We did the patch.
So sort of to segue a little bit, it's updated pretty frequently. And recently, or somewhat recently, we were bestowed the power of Z elevation, and we're starting to see the new timeline feature progressing as well. Are there any features in the wheelhouse that you hope to eventually implement into experimental builds in the near future?
We're working on a lot of stuff. We're always there's often a lot of sort of experimentation and research going on behind the scenes, and we have this huge pile of ideas. We have a public feature suggestion platform which has probably got about 10 years work on it. So unfortunately, we can't do everything. We're trying to fit. Something about running a company is you have to ruthlessly prioritize. You've got to think there are only so many hours in the day. What's the most valuable thing we could be working on? And that's really called opportunity cost, and that's something which is a really significant driver of what we do. Trying to work out what the most valuable thing is. So we've got some. I tweeted recently just a tiny little screenshot of something I've been working on, which is a complete redesign of the functions feature. So you can use functions similar to programming functions in our event block system. The original feature was done with the functions plugin, which was introduced in 2012 when we just moved from working in our bedroom to our office. And it's quite a good example of how things change over time, because that was designed to require the fewest changes possible, so I could do it as quickly as possible and then get on to the next in my list of all urgent things. And so it's in terms of design, it's a bit rushed. It works solidly, but there's lots of things people want differently about it, which are all reasonable requests. So I'm redesigning the entire feature. It's going to work a lot better, much easier to use, be faster as well. So that's the immediate priority. After this call, I'll go back upstairs and carry on working on that. And we've got some big ideas for the rest of the year. Got some exciting new features we're working on, but I'm not sure we're prepared to talk publicly about it just yet. One of the problems is if you say, oh, hey, we're thinking about doing this, and then some people get super excited, and then some people start holding you to that and think of it like a promise. And if you change your mind later, people start saying, oh, what about that? I was waiting for that. Or I bought it because we were going to do that. So it's difficult. At the same time, people want us to communicate, and we like being transparent where we can. So we have to try and find a balance between telling people what we're definitely sure we're going to do, when we can, and not trying to promise things that we might back out of later.
Yeah, I think we work quite sort of fluidly, and as Ash said, there's lots of ideas going around. I think we've had lots of requests over the years for roadmap, And that's one of the main reasons we haven't done it, basically, is because we don't like to disappoint people. We don't like to overpromise. We prefer to work the way we do.
Yeah.
Because that's what's working, we think.
Yeah, things chop and change a lot, especially in technology, especially in HTML5 and web technology. You know, we could set out a year's worth of work, and then 6 months later, there's just everything's changed, and we should be doing completely different things. And if we had to stick 100% to this roadmap we set out, it would actually be a limiting factor, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just as a teaser, we do have something quite exciting, hopefully coming this year, which could transform in some ways how people use the product. So that's one to keep an eye out for this year.
Oh, great.
Sorry, I can't give more information about that.
It's going to be an exciting year. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline, particularly at this point, because we've now released Construct 3. The next big project after that was a whole new runtime, the whole new game engine part of Construct, which we've now completed and launched as of late last year and early this year. So now there's just been this absolute ton of rewriting work going on. That's all cleared out the way now. So now we're looking at the rest of this year, thinking we've got loads more resources now. We've got time to spend on writing new and cool new stuff. And so it's an exciting year for us. I think we're looking forward to everything we can do.
Yeah. Do you see any difficulties with people? I noticed in the Construct community Discord, there's the people trying to convert C2 plugins into C3 plugins. Are there any particular reasons why they couldn't do all of them or most of them?
So in the move to Construct 3 and the new runtime, basically these things are tricky because we wanted to rewrite the entire thing and design it completely differently because we could do it so much better. And then the disadvantage of that is when you have third-party add-ons, they all need rewriting to work with the new code. And the thing about third-party add-ons is often they're done by volunteers who sort of will crank out a few and then disappear off the face of the earth,
right.
or at least from our community. And for users who use those, it can be a roadblock to then upgrading to the new runtime or the new product. So it's a difficult balance, and it's just kind of something you have to deal with. So basically, the problem is who's going to do all this work, converting all these add-ons, which only work for Construct 2 or the old runtime. And a lot of them are open source, so in theory, anyone can come along and do it. But it's technical work, and you're asking volunteers to do it for free. So it can happen slowly. It can happen when people are desperate for them. But there's a lot out there, and I think they'll be sort of gradually being updated over time.
Yeah.
Where you really need them. It's just one of these things you have to accept. It's going to take a long time. It's going to be a problem for a while. But it would be worse to stick with the old code because that was really limiting what we could do.
For sure. Yeah, I'm not quite that advanced. I definitely can't make my own plugins or behaviors or things like that. But I also don't see. I mean, C3 has been really powerful and amazing to me, and I can't imagine that there's any roadblocks. I was just curious. There's certain plugins that I just haven't seen people try to remake, and I didn't know if there was a reason, if there was literally just a roadblock that was just impossible to do it in C3, like Q3D. I saw someone made that plugin in C2, but no one had bothered with C3. And I don't know. Doesn't matter.
And you end up talking about 3D at some point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely don't want to do 3D. The whole reason why I like the software is that it sort of confines you to 2D space, which is already difficult to make a game on your own in 2D. I think how this software thrives is that it is 2D. But I don't think I would want to take that away from other people as well if they wanted it. But so actually, do you guys have an elevator pitch for those people that are maybe on the fence about whether to buy C3 or upgrade from C2?
I think that's the first time I've been asked for an elevator pitch for the upgrade. Do you have an elevator pitch, Ash, for that?
I think the main thing about Construct 2 is it's already 8 years old. If you're thinking about sticking with Construct 2, we probably will retire it at some point or another. not for the foreseeable future. I realise saying that's not really an elevator pitch, is it? I think Construct 3 is it runs in a browser, so you don't need to have any technical skills. You can just load up Construct 3 in your browser and start building a game straight away by drag and drop. You can use it on your phones, you can use it on any device, and your games will run anywhere. So I think it's got a lot of freedom. It's very modern. That's how software works these days. It runs on Chrome OS and everything.
I think from much earlier point as well, we matched Construct 2's features, and now we're exceeding them, and there's still lots more to come.
Yeah, Construct 3 has so many more features over Construct 2 that it would be difficult to even remember them all. There's absolutely tons, not least of which is an entirely rewritten game engine, which, I mean, some of the benchmarks are like 10 times faster. It's got loads of new features, new plugins, new add-ons, things like tween behavior, which tons of people have been asking us for a long time. There's new user interface features, like there's a new search bar and a project bar. I think we would be here for the rest of the conversation going over them. There's so many. So go and check it out on the website. There's a lot of good reasons to upgrade.
And I also think a lot of people don't realise Construct 2 was written entirely by Ashley, and with Construct 3, I think it's fair to say that the whole way it's developed is a lot more agile, and there's 3 full-time developers on that now, so things should move even more rapidly than with Construct 2.
Yeah. The timeline feature is a good example of that, because Diego's been working away on that for around a year or more, actually, whilst we had 2 other developers pumping out features. And then so the product's still very active in development, and then we can still release these huge updates even while that's all happening.
That's a plenty good enough reason for me. I mean, I wasn't on C2, but I've really enjoyed being able to jump on my personal PC and then go home and open it up on my Mac. That's been pretty awesome. And also, too, now you can download it to your desktop. And
I think it's interesting as well. What I've found, this probably isn't so relevant to actual users, but I found this really interesting. I think Construct 3 will load quicker than Construct 2 as well, which is quite amazing. And also it's far easier to run and quicker than downloading an exe and then installing it. So it's just really immediate and right there as soon as you want it.
Yeah.
Good point to raise, actually. If you think about web apps can be far more efficient than desktop apps, actually, especially if you look at download size. I think the Construct 2 download was around 60 megabytes, and Construct 3 can start up after 1 megabyte of download, and then it'll carry on loading a few things in the background, totaling up to about 4 or 5 megabytes, I think. So it's just like way easier to get started with, quicker to run, much smaller, much more lightweight.
Wow.
And I think I'm correct in saying this. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe it's the whole Construct 3 loads in a less bandwidth than Apple's homepage, and this probably isn't as important to people with good internet connections, but around the world, there's a lot of people where if you ask them to download an 80 megabyte installation file, that might not be so easy. So having it really small and really easy to load is important to people in sort of further places further outside the world and with access to better internet. So we think we can reach more people with it as well.
Yeah, well, not to mention that you can actually run Construct on your phone. And if you're using your data, it's a lot less of your data being used, but that's pretty impressive. Yeah. The fact that you can even run it on your phone is pretty impressive.
I remember checking, we've built an entire game development IDE, and it's smaller than the TechCrunch homepage. I remember checking that. So it's, but I think that has a lot to do with just the sort of really poor efficiency of modern websites, which is quite unfortunate. But it's still pretty cool that we've managed to make this, this huge, fully featured web app, and it's still smaller than some web pages out there.
I do have to ask, I just haven't worked in the software enough for me to know the solution, and I haven't checked the forum. It literally happened to me before I went to sleep last night. I've noticed that I have to click, it just started happening. I have to click preview sometimes a few times for it to actually load in preview. But then if I exported it as an HTML5 and I opened it on my website, it opens immediately. Is that a caching issue?
I'm not sure. The main thing people run into with previewing is because it opens a pop-up window, sometimes the browser pop-up blocker will stop it from opening the preview window. So if you, like in Chrome, the first time you press preview, the pop-up will get blocked, and like a little icon will appear in the status bar, and it should tell you that it's happened.
There is a problem on
preview, but it's one of these things about running software in the browser. There are very few disadvantages, but one of them is it's a little bit tricky to open Windows sometimes because of these, because spammers abuse it.
Yeah,
I know with Apple iPhones, I have a problem with this on my phone. So I use an iPhone. Is that some links and web pages you have to press twice before they open and things like that? And there's lots of quirks and lots of different devices.
Yeah. Actually, can I ask you guys a little bit about that? Where do you see Apple in all of this? Because anytime I have people test this, it usually runs fine. It's when people run it on Apple, like either Safari and so even if they'd open it in another browser, all of a sudden it just doesn't load. I get the red bar on the bottom, the red load bar. But it's only on Apple products.
Safari, it's a good browser, and it should fully support pretty much everything in Construct. The red bar thing normally is a sign that something wasn't uploaded properly to the server, or the server's been misconfigured. It's the kind of thing I deal with quite regularly in bug reports, and often it's just like some kind of publishing mistake. But there are bugs in Construct from time to time as well, and we have, because the C3 runtime's new, we did fix a few issues in it in our latest stable release. So there might be a couple of issues that have been fixed there already.
Okay. I mean, this was just HTML on my website. I open it on a PC, it's fine. Somebody opens it on a Mac, and it just all of a sudden it just won't load. No matter how many times you refresh it, it's really bizarre. But when you go through the forums, there's tons of stuff like that where it's a Safari issue, or maybe it's a image size thing. I'll have to check. I'm not going to ask you guys to do tech support for me right now.
There are cross-browser quirks, and Safari is quite frustrating because it is the browser which is the furthest behind all the others at the moment. And there are issues like all browsers now support playing Opus, which is this modern high-quality audio codec, which we use for Construct's audio, but Safari doesn't support it. So then to support that audio file format in Safari, we have to write our own audio decoders and add that to load that in Safari only. And it's all quite complicated. And then if something goes wrong with that, it can cause a problem in Safari only. But generally Safari should work fine. Find me an email if you have any issues. I'll take a look.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I didn't file a ticket. I cheated on this one. Well, I really appreciate you guys spending the time today to talk to me. And I'm sure the community is probably excited to listen to you guys talk about the software. Are you guys involved in GDC at all? I think that's this week. Are you guys involved in that in any way?
No, we're not officially. I think we might be sponsoring something to do with that. I'm not sure, actually. Might edit that out, actually, because I'm not sure that's true. We'd love to attend more events like GDC and some global game jams and things like that. It's something we'd really like to do, but we just don't think we have enough bandwidth at the moment. All our time is going into development and improving things. So as much as we'd like to come and attend these things more, I don't think we've got the bandwidth at the moment. People do ask us, why don't you exhibit more or go to more shows? But exhibiting and attending shows as a brand is incredibly time consuming. I think we did one a few years ago, and it basically takes up at least a week's work from most people. So it's very time consuming. I think we came to the conclusion that it's better we spend all that time and energy and money sort of going into the product. As far as attending casually, if there's some events in London, we do sometimes go and just attend them, sort of have a wander around. I believe EGX is next week or the week after, and I think we're all going to be going there. We actually have a Facebook event.
EGX, that's I think it's a sort of side event in London, which we'll be going along to, I think, yeah.
Yes, so we'll be going along to that, and we're meeting for some drinks after the event, which is on our Facebook. If anyone's going to be around, come and say hi to us, it'd be great. But apart from that, we don't have any plans to attend any shows at the moment.
Well, again, I really appreciate you guys spending time with me today. Hopefully in the future, maybe we'll do another episode. If you guys have some time?
Definitely. It's been fun, and
yeah.
it's been interesting and fun. So thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, if you guys already know Construct.net, I don't have to remind the listeners. But you can follow at Construct Team on Twitter if you haven't already. I don't know if you want people to follow you guys. If I suggest your Twitter handles.
Yeah, we want all the followers. All of them.
Okay. I should have wrote them down. I didn't write down your Twitter handles.
I'm at Ashley Gullen on Twitter.
And we're just at Construct Team. I don't actually use my Twitter anymore.
Oh.
No, sorry. Hold on a second. This is something I should know. Did you read out our Twitter already? I think you did, didn't you?
The Construct Team?
Yes, at Construct Team.
I did, yeah. But I did see that you have one.
I do have one, but I just don't use it. It's a bit of a wasteland, so I won't bother reading that one out.
That seems an unnecessarily harsh way to do Twitter account. It's a wasteland.
Cue a red-tailed hawk. Thank you guys for being on the episode. Thank you for listening to the In Spite of Everything podcast. If you have questions you'd like to ask on future podcasts, or if you know someone who would be an interesting guest, you can email me at isoepodcast@gmail.com and follow In Spite of Everything on Twitter at isoepodcast. And until next time, happy constructing.